WarblesOnALot critiques at theticketybooboo's anti-natalist howling response to my video, Mad Scientist versus Anti-Natalists. My vid about the anti-natalists ran for almost 15 minutes. It was shot in sequence on a mobile phone and uploaded from the mobile phone because I don't have a computer. I'm something of a post-industrial techno-Luddite, I guess. You know, you can see my power supply in the background there. I catch sunlight, store it in batteries, pull it out later. I can't afford to run large power-sucking machinery. So, tickety-boo-boo, yeah, you got to chop my video into shreds, whereas I've just made some notes on everything that you've done, and I'm going to tell you what I think now. My turn. I think you're an hysterical drama queen. I think anti-natalists are projecting their personal, miserable, suffering view of the universe onto the rest of humanity at large. And I mean that psychiatrically. It is an ego defence mechanism. That's what projection is. Go and look it up, dearie. You've got your knickers all twisted and wrapped up in a knot, and you're wailing and tearing your hair out because I've explained to you that anti-natalism is not a philosophy, it's a psychopathology. And I've got a standing challenge open to any anti-natalist on the planet. Here it is. What happens when an anti-natalist attempts to explain anti-natalism to any psychiatrist? Interesting question, isn't it? That's probably why you removed my posts from the comment thread under your 3-part magnum opus. I'll tell you what happens when an anti-natalist explains anti-natalism to a psychiatrist. The anti-natalist is diagnosed and medicated, probably admitted, and they're going to be lucky to escape electroconvulsive therapy. Anti-natalists are sick little puppies. I stand by everything I said in my video. I make no apology for being older and wiser than a bunch of sick little puppies. Now, on the resulting comment thread, the tickety-boo-boo got very personal. She called me a psychopath. Alright, now, it's not true. The Australian Centrelink psychiatrist says that I have narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial traits. I have a better grip on my own history, and I think there's some aspects of paranoid personality disorder, schizoid personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and some post-traumatic head injury syndrome. But then again, like I said, I know the history better. Now, if I lived in England, over there, with my 5 criminal convictions and an IQ of 156, any 2 of those 3 neurotic personality disorders I mentioned, 3 criminal convictions, and an IQ over 120 gets you a diagnosis in England of dangerously severe personality disorder, and they have a 600-bed preventative detention facility at Broadmoor. But I don't live in England. I live in Australia. They pay me a pension, I pay the rates on the Endangered Species Sanctuary, and I have removed myself from society on my own terms. This is good. I'm a neurotic. Neurotics are not out of touch with reality. Neurotics suffer from anxiety. Neurotics worry about stuff that the psychotics don't care about. Psychosis means being out of touch with reality. The people I live on the outside edge of are so psychotic, they light fires to make their food become cold. They have insulated, refrigerated cabinets in their kitchen, and 300 miles away they pay a bloke to sit on a bulldozer pushing coal into a furnace to boil water, to blow steam on a windmill, to spin a wheel covered with magnets, to excite electrons in the copper wire or the aluminium wire that runs for 300 miles, and their overall fuel efficiency is below 3%. They are out of touch with reality. They light fires to make their food become cold, and they only need to do that because they mix dead animals with their food, and the dead animals go rotten. Therefore, they have to refrigerate it. So, honey bun, you got that one wrong. I'm not the psychopath. If you own a refrigerator connected to the power grid, you are. It is you who are fucking the planet. It is you who are pumping out the carbon dioxide. It is you who are creating the greenhouse gas effect. On the comment thread, tickety-boo-boo, you told my daughter that she was a sociopath for daring to question your limited faculties of logic. My daughter was horrified that you, tickety-boo-boo, and all the other anti-natalists like to appropriate other people's existences, other people's experiences, other people's sufferings, and then you put your own spin and interpretation onto that suffering. So in your mind, if somebody gets raped, at whatever age, 5, 10, 12, 25, 105, the moment of the rape, the suffering that occurs during the rape, is so vast that it eclipses everything else that ever happened in their life. They are defined by the rape in your mind for your pathetic political purposes. Every recovering survivor from whatever trauma everywhere on the planet is insulted by you. You snivelling bitch. In order to explain the error of your ways to you within the 1500 character limit of the comment thread, my daughter suggested that if, in your view, the sensation of the moment during the rape or the trauma is all that matters, if that's the only thing, then because drugs are capable of altering the sensation, then therefore it's not the rape that is the dominant feature, it is the drug. So therefore drugs win. She was shooting you down in flames. She wasn't making an argument in favour of drugs. She was just pointing out the error of your pseudo-logic. However, Southern Californian girlie, seeing as you appropriated the right to attack me and my family and put all sorts of violent, vicious ad hominem labels on me, I get to do a little bit of analysis of you, dearie. How much Prozac do you eat? You've got a really nice raccoon mask, so I figure you're pretty depressed about something, yes? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, dearie. During your 3-part 42.5-minute magnum opus, you made multiple references to a hypothetical 12-year-old who gets raped. Some of these references you involved theories of how the girl's arm was to be cut off during the rape. Now, I've never heard of that. I'm not a rapist, I don't hang around with rapists, but I've never heard of people getting their arm cut off during a rape. That seems a little bit of a wild swing of a fevered, deranged imaginitis. However, there was a little ray of insight there. The 12-year-old girl in a couple of your fantasies, she gets to die in labour from the childbirth, from the pregnancy resulting from the rape. You see, that's another one of your fantasies, isn't it? And you don't think that anybody deserves to get born. You think that everybody would be better off not being born. I wonder what we can sew together from that. Imagine a 12-year-old girl is raped, becomes pregnant. As a result of the rape, somebody tells her that she may die in childbirth, therefore she'd better have a pregnancy terminated. By golly, I suppose that would feel like having your arm cut off. Maybe the only way to rationalise it is to decide that the baby was better off being aborted because nobody deserves to live. Could that be what's leaking through your amazing rant? Is that in any way connected to the other fantasy rave about, oh, what about the suffering of a woman who dies of brain cancer and leaves 6 children, one of them a little girl? Listen, girlie, if you want to put your heart on your sleeve, just do it honestly, all right? Don't sit there trying to disguise it, thinking that nobody knows what's going on with the crap that you lay out all over them. If you've got a horror story, own up to it. Embrace the horror story and then get over it. In your closing part of your triptych, you asked what happened to me. Was I dropped on my head as a baby? And I did tell you a few edited snippets from the first year on the comment thread. And as the Gazoos, or whatever his name is, pointed out, according to Freud, I should be a schizophrenic and I should be a homosexual. But because I'm not schizophrenic and I'm not homosexual, the Gazoos says therefore Freud was an idiot. That's a long bow to draw, I believe. But anyway, just so that you can't delete this, dearie, I had a difficult obstetric history. My mother was one of the women who was experimentally induced. It was 10 days in the labour ward. I had traumatic maternal deprivation syndrome 3 times in the first year. When I was 6 months old, I went to live with another family for 6 weeks. Part of the problem is that Dad was 52 and Mum was 24 when I was born. The age gap was 4 years older than she was. Dad's first wife was a nurse back in the 1930s, and back then people ate shitty diets and they were terrified of constipation, and the entire generation had enema fantasies. My father taught them to my mother and inflicted them on me. They liked giving me enemas when I had colic. They thought it meant I had a bowel obstruction. What it meant, as I was taught as a nurse, there's no such thing as a baby with colic unless there's an unhappy neurotic mother in the house. She got to feel unhappy. She got to feel socially isolated. I got to have colic. They gave me an enema. So honey bun, even if you were raped when you were 12, I think being anally raped by my parents for years, the first 3 years, I think that somehow eclipses one bad event for you. at puberty, actually. Then the next year it got a little bit worse, you see, because my mother used to like trying to clean under my foreskin, so she gave me phimosis and I wound up having a circumcision at age 18 months. That was when I started to run away from home. First time I fell down the front steps, busted a tooth, had to go to the dentist and took 3 people to hold me in the chair while the front tooth was extracted. The next week I ran away again down the same front steps after climbing over the fence they put across the gate. So I busted the other front tooth out. I sort of stopped running away for a while. When I started going to daycare, I began acting out, talked a 4-year-old girl out of her underpants because, you know, I thought that what people did when they cared about each other was look at each other shit, because that was how I had been brought up. So she got removed from the daycare. Later on, I went to a different daycare, and as soon as I showed up, she got removed again. When I realised that I was considered by society to be dirty, filthy and disgusting because of what I'd done when I was 3, that was when I got cranky. That was when I was digging a hole in a sand pit and a 2-year-old moved in front of me, and I remember thinking, he'll learn. The blade of the hoe got stuck in his skull hard enough that the handle was parallel to the ground, and I'm 50, but I can still remember 47 years later the noise it made when I put my foot on the back of his shoulders and I pulled the blade out of his head. Right? He survived. The blade got stuck in the inner table of his skull. It didn't go through to his brain. But yeah, I remember being an angry young man, and ever since then I've been scared of how much damage I might do. And that's to say nothing of being a Presbyterian at 2 Catholic boarding schools for 6 years. And you see, tickety-boo-boo, as the merciless eye says, you have no fucking idea what suffering is all about. You've only suffered a little bit. That's what I was pointing out. Anti-Natalists haven't suffered as much as combat veterans. They haven't suffered as much as the children of combat veterans. They haven't suffered as much as people who've been sexually assaulted. They haven't suffered as much as people who admit to being suicidal. And anti-natalists say they're not suicidal. I take them at their word and I diagnose them on their evidence. Now, a couple of these anti-natalists have told me that I'm a wicked evil bastard of a Nazi, which is fairly hysterically humorous when you consider that the anti-natalists are arguing amongst themselves at the moment about whether breeders should be put in jail or sterilised for having babies. There's one addle-pated dingbat called At Heroin Church, and he's told me that he wants to have the right person to be a dictator, to guard standards of social beauty and to make sure that people who are not contributing can be given an easy way out. I left a comment that said, well, for somebody who believes in the Führer principle, you sure reek of Dachau. I asked him, what's his bedtime reading? The Myth of the 20th Century or Mein Kampf? I couldn't believe the dickhead's answer. Oh, I don't read very much, I've only read 2 books. So Heroin Church is such a moron that he didn't recognise... Sorry about that, mate, a fly landed on the camera. He didn't recognise the reference to Mein Kampf. You people call me a Nazi, and you're prescribing concentration camps and mass sterilisations if you can't get people to politically agree to stop breeding, and you call me a Nazi? Fuck off! And by the way, a little bit of a lesson in lexicography. Fuck means for, or forced, unlawful carnal knowledge. It's an acronym, a British legal charge dating back to the post-Crimean War days, when a bunch of drunken war veterans might get pissed and talk about grand old days of blood and looting, and they might rape the local village virgin on the way home, and after that, after forced unlawful carnal knowledge, she's not considered to be much good for anything. So in England they developed a dichotomy, where fuck means have sex and it means to destroy utterly. And you people can fuck off. WarblesOnALot's critiqued the tickety-boo-boo's anti-natalist howlings. Try and eat less Prozac dairy, it's not a good drug.